Afghanistan, which remained a battleground for the power contenders for decades, is again facing a critical and complex situation. The war broke Afghan citizens, which remained the bearers of the world's hard power shows in Afghanistan, were somewhat expecting a demilitarized state after the exit of the US-led forces. However, the takeover of Taliban by militarily defeating the US-supported Ashraf Ghani's government and Afghan forces has again pushed Afghanistan into quite a fragile situation. The situation in Afghanistan is equally critical for the neighboring countries, which are concerned regarding the spillover of the extremist and terrorist entities across their borders. The soft power international policies of China and Russia, synchronizing with Pakistan's foreign policy imperatives, however, are proving to be a few chances of hope, which can make Afghanistan a humanly secure and peaceful country. In this regard, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi is beginning his four-nation tour to the Central Asian republics and Iran. This high-level visit is intended to explore the possible policy options in Afghanistan through the appropriate interdependent policies of all the countries having common borders with Afghanistan. Earlier in July 2021, Prime Minister Imran Khan underscored the importance of the peace in Afghanistan and said that a peaceful Afghanistan will be a core connecting point for Pakistan and Central Asian republics, which will be equally beneficial for Pakistan and Afghanistan's economy. Since Prime Minister Imran Khan came into power, he remained very assertive in the foreign policy objectives and their respective practical implications. The PTI government remained focused on making Pakistan's strategic location be used efficiently for geopolitical as well as geoeconomic gains. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, Pakistan played a core role in facilitating the peace process in Afghanistan. Moreover, in the perspective of the worsening situation of the Afghanistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan showed his assertiveness regarding not being the partner in conflict in Afghanistan. Moreover, he remained very clear regarding not to affect its relations with China on the will of the United States. Hence, under the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, the foreign diplomacy of Pakistan played a core role in shaking the roots of the current world order by prioritizing the interdependent relations with China, Iran and Russia, which will ultimately improve debilitating Afghanistan and minimize the influence of the United States and its ally India in South Asia.
Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman, live from our Islamabad studios today. We'll be talking about the major 3-4 developments. One is about the visit of our Foreign Minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who went to Tajikistan, and now he's left Tajikistan and is going to Uzbekistan, and after that he's going to be Turkmenistan and then Iran. This is going to be a 3-day, 4-nation tour, where he'll be meeting his counterparts and they'll be discussing the future plan of action regarding the Afghan issue. Other than that, Russia and China, they have vowed to combat together all the threats in Afghanistan. Now, that's a very, very important statement by two top leaders. And then again, Biden has also ensured that they will stick to this 31st August evacuation date, where we have seen that a lot of people do believe that they might need more time. But let's see how that story also develops, because Taliban have very categorically mentioned that nothing after the 31st, and all these soldiers, all the boots on ground perhaps, should be airlifted and they should be out of the Afghan border. Now, another very important setup is about the Panjshir issue, how the story is developing. According to the Taliban, they believe that negotiation would be very fruitful rather than having some sort of an assault on that particular area. And historically, we all know the importance of that particular place, the kind of people who could resist there. They are very strong fighters. And on top, what sort of a support are we talking about? Because initially they used to get a lot of support from the Tajik side, even when the Taliban were in control from 96 till 2001. But that was perhaps the line of, I would say, perhaps the line from where they were getting all the ammunition, the finance, and perhaps the people who would get injured would go back to Tajikistan and get treated there. But this time, that proper valley has been surrounded by the Taliban. They're just waiting for the orders. If there are negotiations which are fruitful, good enough. Otherwise, they'll take it over. And that will be pretty bloody, because that is where the problem seems to be. Well, another important development is about the emergency meeting of the G7 summit that was on Afghanistan, and all the major countries, including Canada, America, Germany, Italy, UK, Japan, and France. They were all there. It was a virtual meeting, and they've also talked about the future of Afghanistan. So let's see how things unfold. But to talk about it, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. On my right is Nasir Jaffery Saab, who's a senior journalist, senior writer. Thank you so much, Nasir Saab, for your time. And we also have with us Mohammad Shiraz Saab. Again, he's no introduction. He's an expert on foreign affairs and international relations. Thank you so much, Shiraz Saab, for your time as well, sir. Let's quickly start off from this very important visit of Shah Mahmood Qureshi to Tajikistan, and later he's going to go to Uzbekistan and then Turkmenistan and then Iran and back to Pakistan. 3-day official visit, sir. He's going to meet his counterparts. Today he met the president as well as the foreign minister of Uzbekistan, obviously, of Tajikistan, and they did talk about the future course of action. And it seems that now Pakistan is also mustering the support of all the neighboring countries of Afghanistan for a common decision. Is it the case, sir?
Well, this is not the question of mustering support. Basically, the purpose is to coordinate with all the neighboring countries, especially Iran and Central Asian republics, on the situation that is evolving in Afghanistan. And the main purpose is to see how peace quickly returns to Afghanistan, and how the efforts succeed in bringing all the Afghan leaders to negotiating table. So this is actually the main question, and this is what Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi discussed in Tajikistan. He also had meeting with the Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, Mr. Kamilov, today, and the main point of the discussions was to have a coordinated approach in bringing together all these Afghan leaders on negotiating table to have this transitional setup in place, because the groups besides Taliban are saying that any setup with people from Taliban on board will not succeed. They will have to include people from other segments of Afghan political divide. So this is actually the main topic that is under discussion. Pakistan is, as Foreign Minister yesterday said, and Information Minister also said, that Pakistan is acting very responsibly to basically promote this peace process, to strengthen this peace process, and to avoid any bloodshed. And this is basically Pakistan's approach at the moment, and this will be the same message that Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi will be carrying when he goes to Tehran, because Tehran is one of very important neighboring country, and they can also play a predominantly important role in convincing these Afghan leaders to actually sit together for peace talks, instead of getting indulged in another round of fratricidal war that will be very lethal in terms of peace and in terms of economic cooperation in the entire region, especially when the CPEC project is already going on, and we expect to have the dividends of this project only when peace returns to Afghanistan.
All right. All right, very interesting. Now, another important factor that is also believed to be a part of these discussions, Rasab, could be about, obviously when we talk about the inclusive government or a broad-based government in Afghanistan, you have 10% Uzbek people living there, sir. And their main leader, Dostum, who came back, went back again. Then you talk about the Tajik aspect, so that is also very important, and perhaps some of the adversaries of the Taliban, I mean, are in that region also, so that needs to be sorted out. Turkmenistan, again, sir, you can't rule out the importance of the Turkish Empire, because they really want to have their influence in Afghanistan as well. Dostum, though Uzbek, but a Turkmen. You talk about Ahmad Shah Massoud, the late Ahmad Shah Massoud again. Currently, his both brothers and his son are very active in the Afghan politics, again from the Turkish descent, right? Now you talk about the Iranians, again a very important factor, sir, because you look at the area of Herat or Helmand for that matter, the neighboring areas. I mean, whatever sort of resistance which we were expecting from Muhammad Ismail Khan, eventually he also laid down his arms and perhaps he surrendered, or maybe there was some sort of a negotiation or something similar. But now, sir, the regional countries, because if you look at the overall composition of Afghanistan, because we call it the ethnic society, these are the basic features, and the Pashtun element is obviously towards Pakistan also. So do you think this kind of a formula is going to be long-lasting, where things could settle down and you could have a proper broad-based government and you could see that operating for another 4 or 5 years?
Well, it's very important to define inclusive and how Taliban basically interpret that inclusivity. That is going to be $1 million question, because inclusive on the one end is, as you mentioned, it's a tribal society, ethnic on the ethnic basis and so on and so forth. On the other end, definitely it is the moderate and then the radical side. So as far as the domestic politics is concerned, it probably will demand something else, but it needs to strike an equilibrium when it comes to a new state of Afghanistan, especially under Taliban. So in that context, I would say it's important that that delicate balance needs to be maintained, and especially this recent visit of Foreign Minister of Pakistan, I think it's more targeted towards what happens in Panjshir. So you talk about these neighboring countries, and if we talk about Panjshir, it's all about the Central Asian states and their influence, and as you made the mention, so it's all about getting those people on table to resolve the issue without any major bloodshed in that region. As you know, they are surrounded by Taliban, and then again, the only way of logistics is through air. And in that context, I think Iran, if we talk about Iran, there is another important aspect, that is the refugee question. So we have to see it from, it's like, it has so many problems and issues that are mushrooming, and obviously concerns that are there in the region, that single-handedly, I think it won't be possible for any country to address those. Especially, I have been emphasizing on the fact for the past many years that China and Russia, they will be the major stakeholders in the region, because the politics itself, the global politics, is changing and evolving into a new on a new form, a manifestation. In other words, United States of America is withdrawing, going back to its own region. We see European countries. We saw Brexit at the same time happening. While in Asia, it was Afghanistan with the United States of America. So I think the challenge then again stays at the fact that how will these countries, because without Afghanistan, the ambition of economic integration, the ambition of having the kind of heartland we are targeting, the regional countries are targeting, it is far-flung, because it is right in the middle. Central Asia, China, Iran, Russia, Pakistan. So this is where the main corridor exists, without solving or without pressurizing to an extent, because it's not about Taliban cannot totally go on their own way, because as there was a discussion about inclusive question regarding the question of inclusivity. I think it's important that inclusive should include moderate. So what we are seeing, Taliban.
But and again, because earlier when the government was formed, sir, we all used to talk about the posts which were given primarily to the Northern Alliance, the top posts I'm talking about. Pashtun element was kept at the very bottom, to be very honest, and this was again a matter of concern. But this time it could be the other way around, sir. Pashtun taking over, and then within the lower ranks, Pashtun plus the other ethnic groups. Now, sir, another important factor is about the statement issued by Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. And they said that they will combat combat was the word used, sir, all the threats which are posed in Afghanistan. So that means perhaps they're also talking about the Eastern Turkmenistan Islamic movement. They're also talking about the Chechenian issue or the softer belly of the Russians all along the border, and then perhaps the presence of Daesh or Al-Qaeda or certain other similar non-state actors. So this could be one factor. And at the same time, so if there could be a financial threat, because 400 million of the IMF fund was also not allowed, $9.5 billion worth of money was frozen, and then other assets as well. So there could be and there will be problems in the future.
Certainly, certainly there will be problems. I mean, it will not be very easy for Taliban this time, especially because of their past record. But this time my feeling is that Taliban have come back with a different face. You see, because they know that if they want to govern Afghanistan, they will need international support, and if they need international support, they will have to take steps that are acceptable to international community. Like the international community will certainly like to have them upholding human rights. Then another major issue will be women education, and then certainly kind of a reconciliation with other groups of Afghan political divide. So Taliban have so far making very positive announcements, saying that people should come back to their jobs, people should start and resume their normal businesses. And even yesterday Sohail Shaheen gave an interview and also posted a video clip on Twitter showing that girls' schools are open and girl students are going to school, which was something that we did not see.
Totally unprecedented in that era.
Yeah. So, and moreover, they announced general amnesty for all government employees, and they also said that if former President Ashraf Ghani wants to come back to the country, he can come back. So all these developments show that Taliban have now realized that without any international help, support and financial assistance, they will not be able
to run the government.
they will not be able to run the government. And moreover, another thing, that now the main propaganda tools of the Taliban are Twitter and social media, and they happily come in front of camera and talk to people, which we never saw in their previous
Hardly
tenure.
there was just one picture of Mullah Umar, sir.
Yeah, so now even the leadership level, you can see educated people joining Taliban, and I mean the stature of their Amirul Momineen Habatullah is totally different from that of late Mullah Umar, and then they still are showing very positive attitude towards the issue of Panjshir, and they are saying that they want to resolve this issue through dialogue. They don't want to get indulged in any war, and they don't want to actually do anything that is repugnant to the interests of Afghanistan. So that is also a good sign, and I don't think many people say that there are chances of civil war in Afghanistan, but I don't think there are any chances, because as you said about Ismail Khan, other leaders are also
soldiers.
other leaders are also actually accepting Taliban's rule,
Or maybe they have surrendered and they would like to have a greater role in the future government, perhaps.
And you can see Kabul fell to them within hours.
Yes.
And there was no resistance at all. And if you see people talking to different correspondents from international TV channels and our channels also, Afghan people, they look quite, I mean, satisfied, although they have some reservations. Still, the memories of past still haunt them.
It will take time, I guess, because you can't pick up the entire
Yes.
Afghan population and, you know, place them somewhere in Europe or USA.
Yes.
But sir, we have also been joined in by another senior analyst, Abid Latif Sindhu Sahab. Assalamu alaikum ji. Sindhu Sahab, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Am I audible ji?
Yes, sir, you are, but you know, it would be better if you could speak a little louder. But anyway,
Okay,
good to
okay,
have you in the show, sir. Now, since we were talking about some developments in Afghanistan, earlier we were talking about the Russian and the Chinese commitment to combat all the threats inside Afghanistan posed to the Taliban, and then the visit of Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab to the Central Asian as well as Iran. Now, another important point, sir, since we were talking about that most of these Afghan people, they want to leave Afghanistan, perhaps the moderate ones or the ones who are working with the previous government. Now, sir, one important issue that has risen is that the Afghan administration or the Taliban administration or the Taliban, I would say, decision makers, they have said that this is the brain drain which is taking place. All the doctors and engineers are required here. So in order to run a proper government, they would need all these talented and technical people. Now, they have said that only people who are foreigners, we would let them go, and we would not let any Afghan person leave. But at the same time, having said that, Biden has also said that he's going to stick to the 31st August deadline date, provided if the Taliban, they cooperate. So in this case, do you see this stopping of the regular Afghan people who were supposed to be airlifted by the Germans or the Americans or the British perhaps, would be a problem because the Taliban are not letting them go away or go near to the airport, whereas they are saying that good enough, all the American soldiers or the British soldiers or perhaps the NATO soldiers can leave who are working and looking after the airport affairs. Your take, sir?
Yeah. Yes, I would say yes and no, because, as there are different developments which are taking place in Afghanistan, Taliban 1.0 and this Taliban 2.0 are very different. It seems that now Taliban have a military strategy, they have a political strategy, and they have also a strategy of governance. And, keeping in that in the view, they are also making this gesture that they won't let the brain drain from Afghanistan in the in the garb or on the pretext of a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. They have already made it very clear that there is no civil war in Afghanistan. The humanitarian crisis has not erupted. The law and order, the situation, the civic liberties, and the civic side of the society is intact. So, making that plea, they are telling that they won't be allowing people leaving the country, like that. But on the other hand, once they'll stop, we have to keep in mind that there is a lot of
Hello?
with the NATO forces. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go
Hello?
ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
So there is a very big chunk of the well-educated segment of the Afghan society which had been working with the Americans and with the Westerners. And once they will stop them, leaving the country, that will create a sort of a brash between the Taliban and the Western powers, and especially the media. And recently, which our foreign minister is on a visit to Central Asian countries, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, and Iran. So he's trying to garner the support to reach a solution of Afghan problem in a way that he is trying to bring these Central Asian states, the Taliban government, Iran and Pakistan, in consonance with the policies which Pakistan has been reiterating time and again, that we want to facilitate the process in which the Afghan people, they are able to govern themselves, but with dignity, not with chaos. And the elimination of chaos by the peace process, I think it is the need of the hour.
All right. So, do you see this particular government, I mean, whenever they establish it, of the Afghan Taliban, there would be certain challenges, sir. Islamic movement of Uzbekistan is one. Russians have their own certain concerns. You talk about Turkmenistan, sir, they have their own agenda, they have their own long-term philosophy. Iran has some very, very legitimate concerns. Pakistan talk about the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and other splinter groups there. You talk about China, they have their own concern regarding the Muslims in Xinjiang province. Now, there will be a lot of, initial hurdles for the Taliban. So, do you think at some stage they'll be able to handle those, or eventually do you see some sort of a resistance coming from those particular groups? And even if there is no settlement between the Taliban and the Panjshir group, that could lead to another bloodshed, sir?
Yeah, I think the test case for the Taliban is their relationship or their manifestation of whatever they are saying in words on ground. That is with the Pakistan. Pakistan has two concerns which are very pertinent and principles of our sovereignty, and that too also the sovereignty of Afghanistan. The law against the neighbors, particularly against Pakistan. And the number two is that the space, the political space and the physical space will not be given to the enemies of Pakistan, I mean to say the India, so that they can exploit the territory and the influence there which they have developed in the name of development of, in the name of initiating few development projects. So this is the test case. If Afghan Taliban, they come up and they can assure Pakistan, not in terms of speech diplomacy, but also in practical terms, that they abide by to these two principles, then only these countries which you have named, the Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, the China and Russia, then they will able to, build a confidence, and they will be able to, engage themselves in a meaningful dialogue with Taliban.
All right, sir. Now coming back to you, Jaffer Saab, rather, let me put this question to Shiraz bhai. Now, about the evacuation process, it is not going to be that easy, sir. 19,000 people being airlifted from Kabul airport, but ground, it was a much, much, much larger setup. They were given, or rather, it was just left for the Taliban, and whatever happened, we all got to know, and everybody was surprised, even the Afghan government. And I think they should have had some sort of a hint that this is going to happen to them at a much larger scale in the future. But the interesting part is that whatever happened, we all witnessed. Some of the people couldn't even believe. A lot of analysts were proven wrong also. That so quickly, without even a single bullet being fired, everybody has, simply surrendered. Now the point is, sir, what if Biden administration is unable to lift all the concerned people and staff other than their military officials who are already present there? And the Taliban, they end up saying, well, it's 12 a.m., it's 1st of September, no more. Well, do you think this could be the real bone of contention, and this could be the real problem?
Safe passage can be given. As far as the victory is concerned, even Taliban were surprised what happened. They were not expecting.
They said that we entered Kabul to look after the law law and order situation.
They were
because there was nobody
in the
there
outskirts of Kabul waiting for negotiations, whereas when they saw the security has left, the Afghan forces have left, so because of the security situation, they have to step in. So that's the kind of,
to
shock.
avoid the looting and everything.
Yes, and in that concern. So I think the G7 negotiations which happened today, it is being, a request has been made to Taliban, if in case you don't want to extend the date, give safe passage to the people who want to travel abroad. And Taliban has made a very clear statement in that regard, only with foreign passports will be allowed. Over here, the most important thing is Taliban clearly understand now, somebody has pushed this policy or some sense to in the mindset, that you have a modern infrastructure in Afghanistan. And you don't have the know-how how to run that modern infrastructure. So you're going to need those people which were already part
So
and
pilots, helicopter pilots, airline pilots, I mean so many technical people.
bureaucracy, everything. They have a modern structure over there in Kabul and the major cities, Jalalabad and Kandahar and so on and so forth. So Taliban as yet they don't have the kind of skill set, they don't have the kind of resource, human resource to run that system. And if they want to become part of the international community, it's very important that they have a functional state system infrastructure which is already developed by the developed world over there. So they need those kind of expertise and trainers and trainees for that matter. But I think it's the most important thing, as you mentioned, about whether there's going to be a contradiction of ideas or some kind of aggressive posture on both sides when it comes to delay. Biden has said it very clearly. 31st of August is the cut date. That's it. We are not extended it beyond. UK has been requesting, putting pressure rather.
So Americans are using C-17s
commercial
or
flights as
C-17s,
well. Some
even the Indians, perhaps they were earlier using, and so the case is with the British. Now, the Americans have evacuated 10 times more people than the US, and there was a very interesting picture on social media that there was this Land Cruiser, parked inside the C-17 and occupying the space for 30 people minimum, and God knows why that car was so important or what was inside it. But what I'm saying is that maybe they are deliberately trying to delay this process. Do you think so? Because if you look at the statements of their Prime Minister, he seems to be pretty tricky now.
It's a very difficult job because what happened, nobody was expecting. That's the way the discussion started from. Even the Talibans were surprised what happened. So there were no plans. Biden was devastated. Look at the way right after the first fall of Kabul, the first press conference was from Biden. There was no logical answer to what happened in Afghanistan. He was himself isolated in how to move around. So in that context, I think the failure, that evacuation was the face-saving end for the United States of America, which they did not achieve. The initiative has been lost in Afghanistan by United States of America, and it raised so many questions regarding their alliances with other countries. What will happen? The comparisons between Vietnam and Afghanistan, it started because of the failure of their evacuation policy.
Now, sir, talking about the peaceful Afghanistan means that they'll be requiring a certain sum of money, either in the form of aid or perhaps if they could generate that money themselves. But, sir, there's no proper economy of Afghanistan. Unfortunately, nobody worked during the last 20 years on that. If they would have, things would have been totally different. Most of the money, 95 to 96%, were regarding the ammunition and the military assets and the training perhaps. Rest went to corruption. Now, Jaffery Saab, one important factor that is, I think, the most important is about, let's suppose peace prevails in Afghanistan. Let's hope and pray that people do get settled down. Foreign forces, they leave. They would be requiring a lot of money. And obviously, the money that has been frozen would be given back, let's suppose, but after seeing what the Taliban are doing in return, that is going to be again some sort of a transactional relationship between Afghanistan and the US or the Western world, as you say. So, how important that money or that support would be from the Western world for the Taliban, sir? Or if there is no support, rather there are sanctions imposed, trade sanctions or otherwise, sir, then do you think the countries like Russia or China perhaps could look after the affairs, sir?
Well, as you know, China has actually showed an expression of support for
They have?
Taliban. As far as this international aid and assistance is concerned, this is what I was saying, that Taliban will have to actually show flexibility, will have to bring drastic changes in
For
their
example,
system
for
of
example.
governance. For instance, they will have to respect human rights, they will have to respect women education, they will have to refrain from any vindictive policies or
Now,
actions.
there are two
towards-
certain narratives. One says the Taliban, they are searching for people and they're going door to door. And I've also...
This is what I am telling you, that Taliban are apparently trying to devise a strategy where they are able to get international assistance from leading international lending institutions, as well as Europe, as well as United States. And this is only possible if they bring about major changes in their system of governance, and if they actually try and accommodate and include people from other segments of Afghan political divide into the transitional setup, because an acceptable transitional setup holding an election in Afghanistan will be largely acceptable to the outside world, because it will provide...
They don't believe in democracy. Will they do it?
No. This is what I am telling you, that their decision to allow women and girls to go to schools, their decision to announce amnesty for government employees, their decision to actually talk to US and other countries. And if I exactly remember, there was a meeting between CIA director and Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar also. And what does it mean? It means that they are trying to bring kind of a democracy, a system that is acceptable, largely acceptable
To the masses.
to the masses and to the international community.
Community.
Because first of all, as Shiraz Saab said, they have everything. They have every infrastructure there, especially in the defense field. They have everything, but they don't know how to operate.
Human resource, sir.
Human resource. So they will certainly need international help, and this help will come only when they come up to the expectations of the international
So
community.
that is again where the regional countries would also come in. Perhaps if they need people, trained people, you can have a good amount of people going from Pakistan, going from Iran, even from the Central Asian states, and China in particular. Things could be taken care of.
Well, 3 points.
Where
over
there is a
here.
will, there is a way. So quick comment, 1
Yes,
minute.
3 points over here. The buck stops at what they do against terrorism, the concerns of terrorism. I think human rights will, then again, the world will try to turn an eye. But as far as the question of terrorism is concerned, especially in the regional context, Russia, ISIS, ETM for China, Pakistan, TTP, and then
Islamic movement, Uzbekistan.
Exactly. So in that, I think the buck stops there. And as far as the
But will
sanctions,
they open so many fronts? That is the question.
the most important thing is if Taliban are able to contain, at least show their will, they are containing these threats, especially at the regional level. I think sanctions will not be useful as far as the West is concerned. Third, they have a huge mineral resource, roughly $3 trillion worth
That's
of minerals.
what the world says.
Yes, so in that context, I think there are opportunities, but the challenges.
But
at
I
the
tell you one
moment-
thing, I was doing research on this, Jaffery Saab. I mean, a lot of people do talk about the lithium reserves. The Americans at some stage said that they have the largest in the world. Now, I in fact worked on it, and I got to know that Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, USA, Australia, China, they are the major holders, and Afghanistan wasn't mentioned there. But as far as emerald, copper, Panjshir, you know what is the beauty? The stones.
Stones.
That is the emerald, the most important factor is emerald. And look, you can, William, these are the precious stones. And you talk about diamonds, you talk about rubies, you talk about precious metals, you talk about, forget about lithium for the moment, copper, iron.
Car industry is running out
major,
of chips.
There you go.
You know, the major thing is that even if you have large reserves of these precious stones,
somebody has to explore them out.
Somebody will have to explore
them, yeah.
And then another stage comes when you actually have to make those stones and refine them in terms of quality.
What the
and
Belgians
everything.
and the Indians and the Singaporeans are
Yes,
doing. Add a value to it.
Yes, so in all these areas,
but I think a lot of countries would be
need
eyeing
international help. And as you said, that in this connection, the regional countries like Pakistan and China can be very helpful. But Pakistan and China will also help them if they help themselves in dealing with the issues, especially the one that Shiraz Saeed has mentioned, that is terrorism. And they have just a quick thing, they have already said they will not let Afghan soil
be used against any other neighboring countries. That is the key question.
That is the key question. That shows their resolve. So let us hope for the best.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Jaffery Saab. It was a pleasure having you, Shiraz. Thank you so much for your presence. And that's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.